Again, good morning. My name is Steve Bent. I'm the director of golf here at Virginia Country Club. On behalf of our board of directors, the membership, and our staff, I want to welcome all of you to Virginia Country Club in Long Beach. It's my distinct pleasure to be the MC for the California Golf Summit, and along with the section staff with the Southern California PGA, all the staff here at Virginia Country Club, we have a really exciting couple days for you. You have a great lineup of speakers. You're going to get to see all the parts of our 108-year-old historic club, and we hope you enjoy some of the Virginia Country Club culture and some Long Beach hospitality. So thanks so much for being here. Thank you. As all of you know from putting on events at home, your clubs or your businesses, it takes support of a bunch of people to put events like this together, but it also takes some checkbooks. And we want to send big thanks to the CEO, Mr. Travis Brasher, and the Travis Matthew Golf Company for helping support this event. Want to quickly recognize and again thank our SCPGA staff. They're led by our wonderful CEO and gentleman who was the 1989 PGA of America Golf Professional of the Year, Mr. Tom Addis. Let's have a hand for the SCPGA staff. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our current president with the SCPGA. He is the general manager and chief operating officer at Wilshire Country Club, Mr. Todd Kiefer.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. On behalf of the Southern California officers and board, we really welcome you to this California Teaching Summit. It's unbelievable to be here. I couldn't think of a better spot to be. You know, Virginia Country Club really has a passion and a culture for developing players, and it couldn't, under Jamie Mulligan's leadership, couldn't ask for a better location for all of you to be hosted here today. A couple people want to thank our chair from the teaching committee, Bill McKinney, and Randy Chang. Thank you guys very much for all your efforts on today. Really wanted to kind of touch on a couple things that we hope that you get out of today. First off, I think the vision was we wanted to elevate you. Today is all about you, and tomorrow is well about how we engage and how we elevate our profession. And hopefully you take this opportunity to build some new friendships and walk out of here with 3 to 5 new contacts that maybe you didn't have before, and really help to leverage this experience, because we really do think it's going to be valuable to you. I can't thank the presenters enough for spending the time, and Travis Matthew as well for being here, and hope all of you enjoy the day.
All right, Mr. Kiefer, thank you. Folks, quickly, a couple of housekeeping notes. Just a reminder, if your cell phones aren't turned off or on vibrate, please make sure they are set that way. We want to make sure we don't have any interruptions. We will ask that the gentlemen wear their hats off when in the clubhouse here. And restrooms, the gentleman's locker room is down on the north end of the building. The ladies' locker room is on the south end if you need to use those. We're going to have beverages for you at all of the locations we move to. It's obviously going to be a very hot couple of days, so please hydrate in advance. We want to make sure everybody stays healthy out there. Our first presenter for the summit is a gentleman who came to Southern California as a golf professional in 1957. He became the head professional at Wilshire Country Club in 1962, and he held that position until 2003 when he became the pro emeritus. That means this year he's in his 55th year of tenure at the same country club. He was the golf coach for UCLA men's team from 1975 to 1989. He was the coach of a national championship team in 1988. He's the author of the program we all know called Swing the Handle, Not the Clubhead, and he's taught everyone in the game of golf, from PGA Tour players to the President of the United States. He's a gentleman who is one of the most respected in the world of golf, and he's affectionately known as the Little Pro. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eddie Merrins.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put my little prop down here, and I'm going to get my notes out. But first of all, I want to acknowledge a person who I think is the absolute epitome of what the PGA is trying to create. I've been involved with the PGA since the beginning, back in 1957 when I turned pro, and I've heard umpteen presidents, and I'm still hearing people talk about growing the game and what we should be doing in the PGA. And right here in our midst, we have the example that the PGA of not only America but the world should be offering as the example that we should follow. And his name is Jamie Mulligan, our host professional today. And I'm citing his example because he has impressed me perhaps more than any professional that I've known since I've been in the business. Because he came to work here at Virginia as an assistant pro, did all the necessary menial jobs that went with being an assistant pro, later became the head professional at Virginia, succeeding other good pros who had been here. And when he became the professional, he was not satisfied to be where he was. He wanted to go onward and upward. And upward he has gone because he has become not only the head professional at Virginia Country Club, but he's become the chief operating officer and the CEO at Virginia Country Club. And he's taken along the way, he's taken a sleepy old line country club known as Virginia in Long Beach and turned it into one of the more vibrant golf clubs that I know of. And he's made the members love every bit of that. So my hat is off to Jamie Mulligan, and I do dearly appreciate the opportunity to say what I've just said because it's from the heart. And he's already been introduced, but Tom Addis, we're so happy to have you, and we're so fortunate to have you as our leader in the Southern California section. And you were the president of the PGA, and as good a president as the PGA ever had. So my hat is always off to Tom Addis. Got a little script to go with here, if you will bear with me. What does it mean to be a golf professional / teacher? That's what Jamie asked me to address today. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you dedicated professionals and well-chosen guests on a subject dear to my heart, and that's teaching golf. Why, might you say? Just so happens the game of golf is the greatest common denominator known to man. I learned this from Bobby Harrison. What if world leaders could be introduced this way? Because people from diverse background with otherwise nothing in common are brought together because of a common game called golf. How fortunate we are. Not to mention the character elements taught by the game of golf. And you're seeing that given to young people today after the Augusta National taught the R&A and the USGA and the PGA how they can truly grow the game. And we're finally beginning to grow the game where you can grow the game, in the youth part of America. There is a joy to giving a golf lesson that exceeds the satisfaction of playing a round of golf. I don't care how well you played that round of golf. And I think it has to do with the feeling of giving versus receiving. The true satisfaction is that you have helped someone to help himself. And in my way of thinking, that's the true definition of a good teacher. He helps someone to help himself. To be of value today, I would first like you to know that you teachers are the cream of the crop as far as PGA professionals go, and you command the respect of members, players, and the golfing legions. You are the leaders, they are the followers, and the game is in your hands. Next, I'd like to pose a few questions for your consideration, and after my next presentation, I'm going to invite some questions, and hopefully you'll have a chance to mull over these topics and come up with a question for me. What is playing the game? We hear that expression mentioned, playing the game, but truly, what is playing the game? Who is the best teacher? Is it Sean Foley? He's here today. He's taught the best player in the world. Or is it somebody else? Is it you? It might be you sitting there. What is the right swing philosophy? I have an answer for that. And what is the difference between teaching and coaching? We like to think of ourselves as teachers. We also like to think of ourselves as coaches. There is a difference between teaching and coaching, and we'll address that. I did a thing for the PGA back in Florida, I think it was in 2003, and Martin Hall, who's on the Golf Channel these days, was making a presentation at the same time. And he mentioned something that stuck in my craw forever about golf teachers. He said, teachers must motivate, teachers must educate, and teachers must entertain. Motivate, educate, and entertain. And stop to think of that. You know of teachers who do motivate. You know of teachers who do educate. You know of teachers who do entertain. Bob Toski was the greatest entertainment in the game for years. But do those teachers, do they have the ability to motivate, to teach, and to entertain all in one? I dare say if we can prepare ourselves that way, we can hardly go wrong. My philosophy regarding playing golf, the golf swing, and shot making is spelled out in the Swing the Handle video series that was put together with my son Mason and myself some years back. Mason is here with me today. He drove me here because I've reached that stage in life where I'm not the safest guy on the road to ride with. So, and there have been plenty of red lights that I went right through, Bobby. These poor eyes of mine aren't what they used to be. But I'm going to go through with your patience, and hopefully you'll enjoy what you hear, because it amounts to my golf swing philosophy in a nutshell that I'm going to present in the next so many minutes. And it consists of 8 volumes that we put together in our video collection. And each volume consists of 4 chapters. So 4 times 8 with my LSU arithmetic, I understand that's 32. That's 32 chapters of learning. So it's really soup to nuts, or if you prefer, cocktail to cigar. It covers everything you need in there. And no teacher I ever knew tried to present his teaching philosophy without talking about fundamentals first. So the first volume deals with fundamentals. And the fundamentals are divided into 4 chapters. The grip, the setup, the swing, and fourthly, the proper hand and wrist action. Now, I'm not going to stop and elaborate on those 4 chapters right now, but if something sticks in your mind that you'd like to quiz me about later when we get to the Q&A section, please pose that question. Craig Nelson, and the actor from Bel Air, was a student in that video. Robert Wagner, another actor, was a student in the second video entitled Cause and Effect. What we need to know is not really what comes out of those computers, but we need to know why that little ball does what it does. And if you truly do understand the cause and effect relationship, you won't need those machines. You'll see what the ball does, and you'll be able to tell exactly what's gone on, right or wrong. But the 4 chapters dealing with cause and effect have to do with how many things do you think a golf ball does when it goes through the air? You ever stop to enumerate the things you saw it do? Does 4 things. Goes a certain distance, starts in a certain direction, apt to curve right or left, and travels at a certain trajectory. A golfer needs to understand that cause and effect relationship, because every time he sends the ball through the air, it's doing those 4 things. So he needs to understand from the feedback from the ball itself what caused that to happen. Thirdly, Mac Davis, the singer, and he sang a song to me as we had our lesson, dealt with his chapter had to do with shot-making procedure. Once we understand the swing, once we understand the cause and effect, we go out to play golf. And you arrive at your ball, and you look up at your next target. And what are you supposed to do? There's a little 4-step procedure that you apply each and every time. First consideration before you can plan to do anything with a golf shot is the lie of the ball itself, because it does lie differently. And you need to understand how to connect the club to the ball. Second, the target itself. You need to fix the target in mind. Now, fixing the target in mind means exactly that. And when I see Sean Spieth looking at the hole when he putts, that tells me that he really doesn't have his mindset on the hole. He'd be better off if he were looking at the ball, but had his mindset on the hole. And a proof of that is when you putt with your eyes shut on the putting green. You understand where the hole is because you fixed it in your mind, and you putt the ball from A to B. Well, that's the way you should play golf, and I'll guarantee you at some point Sean Spieth is going to admit that he really did not have his mindset on the hole. But I'll bet if it hasn't occurred to him already, it will occur to him, maybe by one of you all. Shot-making procedure. The ball, the target, the picture of the shot. You're like a pitcher on the mound when you decide which pitch you're coming with next. You've inspected the lie of the ball. All the information regarding the target is funneled through your mind like a mental computer. And thirdly, you picture the shot that you want to play. You picture that shot. And then fourth and finally, you need a swing thought that allows you to swing according to that picture. Well, you've got it if you think of swinging the handle. Now, why in the world is that so important? Because I ask you some further questions. What do you have in your hands when you address the club? Not a 4, not an 8, not a wedge. You have the handle of the club. And what are you meant to do with that? You can't eat with it, you can't paint with it, you can't write with it. All you can do is swing it. So you've determined what you tangibly do swing, the handle part of the club, regardless of the number that it has fixed on the other end. And then the next question you might ask is, all right, how do I swing it? Then you get into the swing philosophy, swinging from one side to the other. And there are differences in that, and we'll talk about that later. Maybe a question will come. So there you are, the ball, the target, the picture, and the swing thought that allows you to produce the picture that you have in mind. Now we're about to go play the game of golf. And David Faraday was nice enough in the day when he had no beard, he agreed to be the student in our video collection. And he appeared out at Los Canyons to do the series with me. And he had started the growth of the beard. He said, "What do I do? Do I keep it or do I cut it off?" I said, "David, whatever turns you on, whatever makes you tick, you go with." And from then on, he's been wearing that beard, and he's carried it to fame and fortune. Bobby, I've got somebody calling. No, you just shut it off, if you will. Yeah, that was David Faraday. He said, "Be kind to me." But David and I spent Los Canyons. We spent a couple of hours out there just talking about playing the game. What in the world is playing the game? And the way I tried to explain it to him, in my belief, is there are 4 goals when you play golf. One is the shot before you from A to B. That's a short-range goal. And second, after the shot, you're playing a certain hole at a certain point in mind. And what is the object on that hole? Not to make 3, not to make 2, not to make 1, not to make 10. You don't know what the score is going to be. The score is a reward. It's not the goal. The goal is to relate to par on that hole as well as you can. That you can do. The next hole that you play, you manage the 4 departments of your game as well as you can relative to par. You can do that. And you can do that for the sake of the round. You can do it for the sake of the shot. You can do it for the sake of the tournament. If you pursue the first 3 goals well, the shot, the hole, and the round, relative to par, you're going to do fine in the tournament. And at least you'll leave that tournament with the satisfaction of knowing that you did the best that you could have done. And David enjoyed that. He had an expression on your face like you can't believe. He was all ears. But he was curious to know what the difference was between the goal and the reward. The goal when you hit the shot is to do the best that you can with it. The outcome of the shot is the reward. Call it birdie, call it par, call it what you may. And the same thinking fits the hole you play. You're going to relate to par on that hole as well as you can. Yes, you are. But you don't know what the number's going to be, so it's wrong to be thinking numbers. The number that you get is the reward rather than the goal. And you do that for the course of the round, managed in your mind for 18 holes or 9 holes, whatever the round may be, in a match medal sense, matching yourself against par on that golf course. And you do that for the course of the 4 rounds of the tournament or the 3 rounds of the tournament or the 2 rounds of the tournament, and you've done the best that you can do. And if you did well enough, lo and behold, in that tournament, you might be declared the winner because you related to par better than anybody else that week. That's how you win. You do not win trying to win. Greg Norman was the greatest example I know of trying to win when he had winning in his palm. He tried to do things he had no control over, trying to drive up and win the Masters when he was 6 shots ahead. Had he taken the shot at hand, the hole at hand relative to par, and the round that he was playing relative to par, I would have bet a good sum of money that he'd win that Masters. The short game, that would be volume number 6. Bobby May was a student in that. And that deals with putting, chipping, pitching, and bunker play. putting, chipping, pitching, and bunker play. And we elaborate on that. And Bobby was as good as they come as a young player, and he had an unfulfilled career because he was a great junior player. He was a great college player, a great amateur player. And professionally, he's been knocking on the door. And he had that PGA. In fact, he set a record in the PGA at Valhalla, only to lose to Superman in a playoff. So Superman beat a lot of other good players at the same while. But the short game with Bobby May is featured in Volume 6. And in Volume 7, Helen Alfredson was the student. She was captain of the Solheim Cup team for Europe, and a wonderful player and a beautiful woman on top of all of that. But her video with me, her chapter, had to do with rhythm, tempo, timing, and coordination. There's some words that we tend to jumble together to mean the same thing. Words like rhythm, tempo, timing. You throw those three words out there, and most people have taken them to mean the same thing, just expressed by different people. I'd like to think that those words have a distinct meaning, each to its own. You can do it very, very simply. If you cite a little cadence to yourself when you swing. At the end of your backswing, say the word set, S-E-T. At the ball, say the word swing. Say set, swing, set, swing. You'll love the feeling that goes with it because you just discovered your sense of rhythm. And we all know that if the rhythm is right, you're going to play well. But if the rhythm is off, we tend to fight it, and we tend to fight the mechanics of the swing, and the mechanics really aren't at fault. It's the sense of rhythm that's at fault. So if you'll cite that cadence to yourself, you'll like what you see, you'll like what you feel. Now, what would tempo be? What would tempo be if rhythm deals with the placement of the speed? What would tempo be? Tempo would be the rate of that speed, meaning to say you can go set, swing, set, swing, set, swing, set, swing, set, swing. I haven't changed anything fundamentally. I haven't changed anything rhythmically speaking, but I have varied the tempo. And you should be able to do that. You should be able to swing as fast as you feel like, or as slow as you feel like. But you don't want to foul up the mechanics of the swing nor the rhythm of the swing in doing it. And the other word that gets in the way would be timing. Timing to me is the movement of the club from the one side to the other. End to end, if you will, but not top to bottom. Most reference that we hear and we've heard from the get-go refers to the end of the backswing as the top of the swing. From the top, where do you go but to the top? Why you didn't get where you're trying to go. It has to do with your swing philosophy, with your concept. You don't hear a baseball batter refer to the end of the swing as the top. You don't hear the tennis player refer to the end of the swing as the top. It's the end of the swing from one side to the other. If you refer to your golf swing that way, you're going to be able to swing through the midpoint, through the ball. And I like to offer a student a little geography lesson to go with, to help him understand how he swings the club relative to his body. I want him to think in terms of being in New York when he's at the end of the backswing. And I want him to think of swinging to Los Angeles on the other end of the swing. I want him to go through Chicago. but not to Chicago. That's the mistake that golfers make. They go New York, Chicago, wondering why they didn't get where they're trying to go. It has to do with your concept. So if you can just do that little geography lesson, perform that geography lesson on yourself, you just did yourself a big favor. New York, LA, through Chicago. Go through Chicago as soon as you like, as fast as you like, as strong as you like. But do go through there. Don't stop. Chapter 8, Volume 8 rather, was with Duffy Waldorf. And Duffy, one of my UCLA players, probably had as much ability as any player I've ever known. Winning a golf tournament was fun for him, but it was not the end all. I think had he been a little more serious about winning championships, he would have won a lot more than he did, because he had it all going for him. He had the physical makeup, he had the technical makeup, he had the mental makeup, he had it all going. But Duffy was the student in our Volume 8, dealing with the physical, the mental, the technical, and the spiritual aspect of playing golf. Now, most of you can appreciate what the physical part deals with. That's the physical well-being. And the tour players today are spending a lot of time getting fit, staying fit, getting stronger. The mental aspect, that covers a myriad of things doing with the mind control. You're seeing a lot of studies in that realm. The technical part deals with the swing, but mind you, from this point forward, we're going to go from New York to LA through Chicago, but we're not stopping in Chicago. I don't care if you have the most beautiful girl in the world waiting there. We're going to go through Chicago on our way to LA. But what about the spiritual part of it? That gets to be an element that maybe we as teachers are not qualified to teach, but why not? We're expected to be bookies, we're expected to be procurers, we're expected to be a little bit of everything else. So why not deal with the spiritual part? And I guarantee you, when you see a Jordan Spieth or the great players under pressure, the spiritual part comes out. The character element comes out. And it could be in the form of religion, it could be in the form of education, it could be in the form of association. It comes from a lot of different sources. But the spiritual part has to do with a champion's makeup. And you see these guys under pressure. Some come through, some don't come through. And if they consult themselves, they'll begin to realize they had a bit of a weakness there. And you can't afford a weakness if you're trying to be a competitive player. That's kind of the gist. The ninth chapter, or the ninth volume, is a bonus volume that we offered regarding tips and drills. But that's a pretty soup to nuts coverage of my teaching philosophy in 32 chapters, 8 volumes, 32 chapters. And I'm going to, at this point, invite some questions. We have just enough time. We have 15 to 20 minutes. And I know there's some questions out there that you can't wait to throw the little pros way, and I'm waiting to hear what you have to say. So do we have a question? Yes, sir. I played in 8 U.S. Opens. I played in 8 U.S. Opens. And I remember each and every one, too. I played at Inverness in 1957. I played at Oakland Hills in 61. I played at Olympic in 60. No, I played at St. Louis in 65, at Belle Reeves, 66 at Olympic Club, 67 at Baldus Roll, 68 at Oak Hill, 71 at Marion, and 73 at Oakmont. So that. And you do not see my name on that trophy, or not even close to being on that trophy. But the mere fact that we were there was very satisfying. Any other question? Have a good one coming up over here, this gentleman. Well, thank you. The longevity thing, I'm not sure I'm as long as I would like to be, especially in length off the tee, because I used to think my tee shot went out there like a rifle shot, but in today's world it's more like a shot put. That's what it resembles. But I think you do work at these four aspects of being a good player. You work at the technical part, trying to learn the swing for your own satisfaction. You try to learn the physical makeup, trying to become stronger, trying to be in better physical shape. And you do try to learn the mental part. And the mental part, I do remember in the early 80s, the sports psychologists came on the scene when I was coaching at UCLA. All of a sudden, these guys come out of the blue because they recognize a fertile field in the form of golfers as opposed to dealing with children and wives with problems or whatever. All of a sudden, they're dealing with golfers, and they see a lucrative field there. And I was a little bit leery of introducing them to my golf team, because college golfers are monkey see, monkey do. Whatever the latest thing they've heard about, they're going to go out and do the next day. But trying to be objective as a coach, I did invite those people in to make a presentation, but I tried to time it so we didn't have an important tournament the next day. I gave us a little time in between to absorb whatever they were presenting. But the mental aspect that comes from them, the sports psychologists, can, I think, all be summed up in one word, the word positive versus negative. All around us, when we play a shot, when we play a hole, when we play a round, when we play a tournament, there are all kinds of negative suppositions. You don't have to look very far if you want to hang your hat on a negative. They're all around. As a matter of fact, if you're playing with a player who is negative in his presentation of things, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk down the other side of the fairway. Don't even get near him, because you want to deal with positive people and positive things. There is a positive that offsets every negative. And when we're looking to solve our shot-making problems, we want to dwell on the positive. So if you have a positive picture of the shot, you've overcome the negative supposition. And it's your choice at that point now. You've decided you're going to play a positive shot over a water hazard to a tightly tucked pin. It's now your choice whether you do that positively, tentatively, or negatively. So why be negative to tentative when you can be positive? That's your choice. You can step up and execute that shot as positively as you can. And lo and behold, you'll surprise yourself at how successful you become. And you've erased the negative supposition. You've substituted a positive for the negative. This lady in the front had a question, had her hand. A new student having a lesson for the first time, what do I do as a first step with that new student? I don't really treat a new student any differently than when we say new. I think you're meaning a woman. Okay. I like to ask the student what he or she wants to accomplish. What would you like to do? I want to know what's going through their mind, what their thinking is, and I want to address that. I think if we, let's say we're the greatest teacher in the world, and we know what's good for a student, when that student comes to us, he or she has a particular problem they want solved. They don't want to hear everything we know. They want to know the answer to their question. So that's the way I would try to treat it. Now, when you're dealing with youngsters, you have to try to talk to them on that level. When you're dealing with a newcomer, an older person, male or female, whatever, you try to speak to them along those lines. But I think you can treat all students the same way if you're addressing the problem they may have. That would be my answer. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Morning. Fundamentals to me are the grip, the setup, the swing, proper hand and wrist action. And I'm going to show you a little drill that you can take with you, and I think you'll enjoy the result. That's a sign of the times. That first club I pulled out of the bag was too heavy. I had to reach and get something a little lighter. If you notice, I've got my Callaway bag and clubs. Ely Callaway was a significant investor in this video program that we put together. So I'll always be indebted to Ely Callaway and the Callaway Golf Company. But this club that I'm holding in my hands, I'm going to address in the middle of the shaft. Okay. That's helping you in the sense that with the shaft extended beyond my left side, it's free and clear of the body so that I can move it from the one side to the other without the body being in the way. The worst thing you want to have happen is the body and the club colliding within the swing. And if this happens, you're going to wind up like this within your swing. In other words, the body is in front of the shaft. You cannot play from here. But you can play, and you can play quite well, from behind the shaft. And that meaning, that expression is very meaningful to you. You hear the expression from most teachers that you listen to, stay behind the ball. Behind the ball doesn't mean a whole lot. You can be behind the ball, but if you're out in front of the club, you can't play. And I'm going to take you through a little scenario or two. We're going to start with the club in this position. And I'm going to lay the club off, so to speak. I'm going to roll it open to the right with my hands. Now all of a sudden my body is in front of the club. Or let's say we do the opposite of that. Let's say we start correctly and we hood the club, close the club in the takeaway. Now all of a sudden I'm out in front of the shaft. Or let's say we start correctly and at some point we get too flat. Now we're out in front of the club. Or let's say we do the opposite of that. Let's say we get too upright. Now we're out in front of the club. Or let's say we swing to the end of the backswing and we decide to hit from the top. Now we're out in front of the club. Or let's say we're in good position at the end of the backswing and we spin out. Now we're out in front of the club. Or let's say you near the ball and you so-called release the club. Now you're out in front of the club. So every one in that scenario every movement that I made puts you in front of the club. So that's how important this understanding is, that you set up behind the shaft of the club and just stay there for the rest of your life. Most teaching has you point the club at the middle of the body. Well, half your body is behind the club and half your body is in front of the club. And it's very easy to move out in front of the club where you don't want to be. I'd much prefer to see you set up behind the shaft of the club and just stay there from now on. That one little drill is teaching you everything you'll need to know about a golf swing. Dealing with the grip, dealing with the setup, dealing with the swing. Mind you, we're going to swing from New York, LA, through Chicago. And also dealing with the proper hand and wrist action. Because when we think of hand and wrist action, most of us think of this kind of thing. And if I do that, note what happens. I'm going to beat myself black and blue with this club. Or if I roll my hands, so-called release the club, again, the handle goes backward and there's a collision between club and body. But if I allow the hands to lever up and down, as they should, there is no conflict. And that's truly the right kind of hand and wrist action within a golf swing. Your hands at the wrist are going to lever up and down throughout. As your arms swing the club from the one side to the other side, your hands and your upper arm are going to lever the club up and down. Every bit of that is spelled out for you in that one little drill. Okay, any other questions that come to mind? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did a thing in 2002, I think, at Port St. Lucie for the PGA, trying to address the difference between the two words. And I spoke to Larry Brown, to Ara Parsegan, to John Wooden, to various coaches who were certainly great coaches. And it seems that teachers teach the fundamentals of the game, teach you how to play shots, even teach you how to play the game somewhat. But the good coaches take a player or a team of players and they have the innate ability to get the most out of the talent. And that's what great coaches do. That's what this Dodger manager is doing right now. Dave Roberts is getting the most out of his talent. And that's why he's in the World Series today. Any other? Yes, sir. Golf is this is the way I look at the game of golf. When you think of football today and all the head injuries and the problems that are being encountered and whether they stand for the anthem or don't stand for the anthem, you know, parents are going to look at those injuries and those things they don't like, and they're going to start directing their youngsters toward golf or toward soccer or toward some sport where they don't get hurt. And I think the game of golf is going to profit from that in the future. But as far as my own players are concerned, I introduced them to the gym when they were at UCLA. I wanted them to learn how to use the gym, but I was very careful not to do that in the spring of the year when most of the tournaments were played, the important tournaments, but rather in the fall of the year where they could experiment a little bit. I wanted them to know how to use the gym. But I didn't make it my position to teach them what to do in the gym. I wanted them to do that on their own. Yes, indeed. Any other question? Yes, sir. Well, in the game of golf, you show up as a team, but your teammate can't play the game for you. It's an individual game played in a group situation, played by a team. But your teammate can't play for you, really. He can play his own game, and he's on your team, and he's going to count in your favor. But I think it always will be an individual game, even though you show up as a group. Okay? Yes, sir. Dave? You're doing exactly what you should be doing, because Jake works at Bel Air, and he did work for Jim in Miami, and he's got a wealth of experience behind him, and he's willing to teach youngsters, he's willing to teach women, he's willing to teach good players, not so good players, whatever. He wants to be a good teacher because he loves it, and because you do love it, you're going to be good. So just keep doing what you're doing. Have your antenna up, listen to whatever somebody has to say, and you can either accept or reject. Gary Player was one of the best I ever saw at that. He'd take a lesson from the chambermaid in the hotel if he thought he could learn something. But he had the penchant for being able to dismiss what he didn't need. He could accept and reject. And you, knowing as much as you know, have the ability to do that. But you're going to expose yourself to other teachers, and you should. And lo and behold, you might well turn out to be the best of them all. Yes, sir. My first job as a golf professional was at Merrins in 1957. I was there till 1960, and I did work for Fred Austin there. And he was an Ernest Jones disciple. And those of you who don't know who Ernest Jones was, he probably gave more one-on-one golf lessons than anybody who ever lived. And his theory, and it was in a book that he presented, swing the club head. And it couldn't have been more different or more opposite than the way I went. So that's what I'm trying to tell Jake. You expose yourself to these other teachers, but you don't have to buy into it. You can find your own way. But indeed, it occurred to me at Merrins, through teaching and working on my own golf game, that you really do not swing the club head. Most teaching at that time in every book that you read referred to hands and club head. And the role of hands and club head in today's world is a passive role, whereas the forearms and the handle of the club assume the active role. And you can hit the shot as strong as you feel like, as long as you do it with your forearms and the handle of the club. But yes, the hands do hold the club, but they don't swing the club. Because that's when you begin to flip it around and do crazy things with the club. You remember Bobby Jones referring to that? And in competition, he credits playing old man par with giving him the peace of mind to be able to compete, not against the opponent, but against the par on the golf course. Now, how you do that, how do you go out and play a golf course? That's going to be one of the questions that need to be answered. How do you play a golf course? What kind of strategy comes into play there? You're late to par on that course. Well, how can you do that? If you're familiar with Bel Air, most of you have probably been there at one time or another. The first hole at Bel Air is a 5 par. George Thomas, the architect, believed in an easy getaway hole. So Riviera, LA Country Club, Bel Air, all have easy par 5s to start the round. You might, in your round, eagle the hole. Well, you aren't 1 up on old man par, you're 2 up right out of the gate. And let's say you parred the next 5 holes through the 6th hole, you're still 2 under par or 2 up on par, however you want to term it. And let's say at Bel Air on the 7th hole, you pulled 2 balls out of bounds to the right, and you made an 8 on the par 4. You didn't lose 1 on that hole. You lost 4 in one swoop. So you just went from being 2 under or 2 up to all of a sudden 2 down because you lost 4 in one hole. That's match medal scoring versus match play scoring or medal play scoring. You cannot go out and shoot a medal round. You get a medal score, yes you do, that's your reward. But you cannot go out and predict and shoot a score. It would strictly be happenstance if you did. But if you can think that way, in a match medal sense, all of a sudden you begin to understand what the real game is all about. We all have a spiritual side, whether you express it differently or not is up to you. You know, some people go to church and there are different churches to go to. Some people do it with education, association, whatever it may be. But to me, the understanding of religion is like playing golf according to a rule book. If we didn't have a rule book to go by, the game would be chaotic. You'd be making rules on every hole you came to. That shouldn't be. But you need, in life, like in golf, you need a place to go to get your answer when you need the answer. And I think that's what philosophy, religion, whatever you want to call it, spiritual, is all about. Well, the intangible thing is that he had great mind control when he was over a golf shot. He could make things happen. And you asked Rocco Mediate, who lost the playoff to Tiger at Torrey Pines, about that putt that Tiger holed on the 18th green from 20 feet. It's curling down toward the ocean, away from the mountain, and it's a piranha-infested green. The ball is bouncing all over the place, and it ducked right in the right side of the hole, and he birdies the hole and went on to tie and then win the playoff. Tiger did. But in his mind, that rough patch of green was as smooth as silk, because he had great mind control at that time. And we admired that in him. We admired the fact that he could make himself produce when he had to produce. Yes, ma'am. I think probably I knew him not well, but I knew him. I was friendly with Ben Hogan, and he gets credit for probably having the best mind control of any player. But in order to do it, he had to almost shut himself off from the rest of the world. And it was quite unusual the way he went about it. In close company, he was not the most gregarious person you ever met. But he could be in close company if he chose to be. He could be at a dinner party with you, never having seen you before, and he could be engaging at that dinner party through the evening. He could be, because he had mind control. And mind you, he didn't go past the 8th grade in school, but he was self-educated. And he made it his point to be self-educated. And I do believe an inferiority complex led him to the extremes that he went to in order to succeed. But he succeeded because of the fear of losing. He didn't want to lose. So he took the necessary steps to win. I think I've just about run the gamut. Yes, sir. One more question, if you will. I played with Jack Nicklaus, and I've known Jack since he was 14 years old. In fact, he once told me, because he won a tournament called the JC National Junior one year, and I ran into him somewhere, and he said, "I won your tournament," because I'd won that tournament myself. And I told my coach at LSU, Mike Barbata, this young boy from Ohio is good, and he wants to come to LSU. realm of the great coaches of the world, his name is not listed. Okay. Well, I thank you all for inviting me in to be part of this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Folks, just a couple notes before Mr. Merrins steps down. First of all, I made the first bogey of the morning and introduced him from Wilshire Country Club. He's quite obviously not been at Wilshire for 55 years, unless we've got our maps really wrong. So from Bel Air Country Club, Mr. Merrins. And sir, we've been lucky enough to have you here at Virginia Country Club a couple of times. You're always so gracious and so complimentary of Jamie and our great staff here at the club, but you're truly one of the most humble gentlemen and icons of our game, and we really are thankful for you being here for the California Golf Summit, so thank you again.